This conference will now be recorded.
Awesome. Evening, everybody. We'll call a meeting for the Zoning Board of Adjustment for August 17th of 2021. Just so you guys know, Scott resigned from the zoning board. Just had personal reasons, some changes in life, it sounds like. So that should be four of us. All right, we can move right to the cases. Yeah.
Take attendance, roll call attendance, names, introduce.
Just, I haven't done that yet. Make sure I get everybody's names right.
I don't know if I have the names.
And
Oh, there you go. You can get right after your minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Eric Usinger.
Here.
Brian Pease.
Yep, here.
And myself, Frank Hillman. We're all here. We'll start with the continued case, Zoning Board 21-11. Mr. Sargent.
At our last meeting, you asked me where things stood with the Department of Environmental Services, and I couldn't give you any answers at that time because I had not received this letter. But you see, there is a time scale of what we're doing with the environmental services. We've already hired Brian Bailey, the original person that drew that map that shows the wetlands on there. He is currently working on step 2. We've already completed step 1. He's working on step 2. When he will have the actual plans, I do not know, but I assume that they will have it before the September 24th timeframe that they've asked for. So at this time, I probably just want to continue this until, let's say, October, to give them time to get the plans done, have the environmental services look at them, and then we can see where we can go from there.
Okay, I think we'd have to continue it to September just as a matter of formality, or?
Well, to keep, I think, continuing to dates, and we don't think we'll have material, I think you should just continue to a date uncertain. And then when you have a date, we will just renotice the abutters. And yeah, we'll have to pay for that, but it's.
I don't have a problem with paying to renotice the abutters. That.
So
I mean,
we
I think
can
that's
continue it to a date
Date
uncertain, and he
uncertain.
doesn't have to come back every month until he's ready.
Correct, and then the abutters don't have to keep following or trying, month after month until we get this resolved, because this could be lengthy. So.
Yeah, makes
No,
sense.
I think that is very, very reasonable. I don't expect this to be a quick process. No, it never is when working with environmental services. I've done it before. But I want to make sure, and I also want to make sure it's done right, so that everybody is happy and the end result.
Awesome.
So, I guess we're set for tonight.
Yeah, do we need to make a motion to continue and vote on it?
Make a motion to continue it until
An undetermined.
undetermined date.
I'll second it.
Right, motion been made and seconded. Any discussion about it? I think it makes perfect sense. Yep. Okay. You good with it? Yep. Those in favor? Aye. And those opposed? There's none, and it passes. We will see you
We'll see you.
when we see you.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck.
I appreciate your time. I know there's nothing that wants to work on.
All right, on to zoning board case 2117. JBC. Evening.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Christensen. I represent the applicant, JCB LLC. With me is Jennifer Bouchard, Chris Bouchard, who are the members of the LLC. This application.
Just a minute, I'm sorry, let's make sure that mic is working. Is that mic on?
Mic is working. I'm going to take one of these, though. I think these work better than that one. That one, you almost have to be like kissing it.
Well, now I feel like I'm giving a press conference.
Yeah.
Can I still be heard? Perfect. So this application and the related application for 12 Hill Road, this one is 14A Hill Road, they all relate to the same issue. This is These are variances that are necessary to enable a property line adjustment between the three properties, 12 Hill Road, 14 Hill Road, and 14A Hill Road. Boundary line adjustment does not involve any changes to any of the buildings on the lots, does not change any of the physical condition of the property, with one exception that I'll touch on in a minute. But they do, however, because they're changing the configuration of the lots and where the boundary lines are, require some variances that were not required earlier. In the case of lot 14A, the one that's subject to this variance, the only variance that is needed is in connection with the access road to the property. With the application, there is a plan that was submitted that shows the boundary line adjustment and the changes that will be made. An updated plan was submitted today, and I believe you all have copies, but if you don't, please let me know and I'd be happy to provide another one. That updated plan, all it did was correct a typo in one area where it said that the land was going to be given to lot 21 instead of lot 20. What's going on with lot 14A is the access road to this property. This property is landlocked, so it requires access through an easement over one of the abutting properties. Currently, it has an easement through the westerly abutter. That access is proposed to be relocated to going across the land of 12 Hill Road, as opposed to the immediate adjacent abutter, and consolidating that with the access that currently exists to go to the lot at 14 Hill Road. So essentially getting rid of two driveways and consolidating them into one single unified driveway. However, the driveway that would be consolidated, the one that already exists for 14 Hill Road, is slightly smaller than the easement that currently serves lot 14A. It's a shrinkage from 12.98 feet to 12.36 feet. That's about 7 inches of difference. Insignificant, but it is technically a difference, and therefore we do technically require a variance to do it. The elements for the variance, all 5, are addressed in the written application. For the sake of brevity and everybody's time tonight, go through them exhaustively in detail. I'll just touch on the highlights. But overall, as I mentioned, the difference here between the current access and the proposed access is insignificant. It's 7 inches. This is not going to make any practical difference for anybody who's not one of the 2 lots in question, 14 or 14A. There's going to be no change to the character of the neighborhood, no increase in overcrowding. Honestly, most people in the area, the general public, will probably not even notice. There are, however, some positive impacts relating to this change. Most significantly, the consolidation of the 2 access roads means that there's one less intersection on the public highway, one less spot where cars are coming in and going out. Create a little bit less traffic congestion, create a little bit less confusion for emergency access vehicles, just basically clean up that portion of the highway. This would simplify traffic, simplify everybody's life who travels in this area, and also just generally improve the safety and emergency access, be a net benefit for the public health. Overall, this variance is necessary to accomplish the boundary line adjustment, which is a net positive for all of the properties involved. The boundary line adjustment overall would not have any material impact on any of the neighbors or the public property, other than the westerly abutter, who will no longer have an access road driving over their property. So nice for them. It's a purely positive impact overall, with no meaningful or appreciable negative impact on the abutters, the neighbors, the general area, or the general public. So for that reason, we would ask the board to grant this variance. If the board has any questions, I'm happy to address them. The applicants themselves are here as well if there's any details that I do not have access to off the top of my
Would you mind, sir, if you would just come up here and just show me what exists currently and what you are looking to do in the future?
This might help.
This is right here.
Like,
Is this the
I'm a
one where the
little
access
confused.
road goes through the parking lot?
I did this.
I'm thinking this is what you want to do, and this checkered, which I know is the old one, is what is existing.
This might help you. I did this markup on
Okay.
mine with colors as well and marked what the old and new. Hopefully I did it correctly.
So
And if any abutters want to see this as well, they should be able to.
this lot, this is 12 Hill Road,
Okay.
currently owns this oddly shaped
Right.
piece of
yeah,
land
Yeah,
that wraps around the others.
okay.
What this boundary line proposal is to basically clean up the lots.
Just
So
for
So wait,
clarification, this is
just slow
technically
down,
the next
'cause-
case, right?
it's both.
Well, they're both, because they're all, it's all,
Can we hear them as one? I'm just making sure I'm doing this right.
you can review the information all together, and then you'll have to look at them both. So like I made a note here, see 19 to 21. So this here, if I'm right, was 19
It belongs to, as
here,
part of this lot here.
and it's going
that
to
wraps
21.
around.
See, I wrote 21. So this was 19, and they want to give this to 21.
Oh,
21 is here.
Just wanna make
This
sure you guys
was-
got it right. It's really confusing.
Yeah, no worries.
I know
This
you
was
got it. This is from
21
when
and
we were
going
here
to
before.
22. So this is going to be, I wrote, so this is 21, this will be 22. So this is going to this guy.
This is the condo complex where the access road goes through the parking lot?
Correct.
Okay.
So that will be going to the
Right.
condo complex.
See how I
You
wrote,
got
yes,
it.
I wrote 21 to 22. This is 19 to 21.
So this lot would become this square. This lot
Yeah,
would
and
become
this is
this
going to be
square.
21 and 21.
This would stay all as one without this. The access for both 14 and 14A would come through this single easement.
ah,
So right
So
now we
just
drive
leave-
through the condos and the
Sure.
parking, and they'll gain parking, they'll gain a lot. That way we don't have to access this unit. We can go through the driveway that's already there that these houses use.
So this will be one
Thank you.
lot. This will be one lot.
Correct.
Actually,
It's this pink
This
one.
will
Oh, the pink one.
Triangle.
Okay.
And this one's a triangle.
Now I understand.
And
Okay.
this
This
one
will be
all-
one lot.
Yeah.
and this 20,
This
this
will be a lot.
was, this will be
Correct.
21. This belonged to
This kinda
22,
cleans up
I
both
think.
sides.
I think this one belonged. this
Correct. So the
little bit,
condos had this little triangle,
Which was
so we're
weird.
almost like trading.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So they're going to take 21
clean
here and
up the
22
lines.
there.
Yeah,
These
cleans
two.
up all the property lines to make everything a little bit more.
You guys want, Brian, did you see?
I was looking at this.
You knew it.
I have no clue.
I have to use color. I can't.
that makes sense.
You
Thank
get
you.
to see that?
Yes.
You could see it, right, Brian?
Also, Matt, you might want to ask them about us when you get public input. You might want to see that as well.
For sure. I'm gonna need you to explain.
I wrote the numbers that it's going to is on the.
Yeah, and
On the
those,
property.
Easy, oh, yeah.
so those numbers should already have been on the existing plan. With the highlights, it makes it a little bit more clear. There was one spot where what was being proposed to be added to lot 20 was on the original plan, it said it was being added to lot 21, which wouldn't make sense because then lot 21 would completely encompass lot 20.
It was just a typo.
That was a typo.
Mhm.
It's being added to lot 20 so that that little odd elbow that wraps around lot 20 will just become part of lot 20.
Yeah.
And so the change in the 12.98 to 12.36, that's just the moving of what happens to exist for this access, for
Right.
getting rid of the old one.
So if you look at on the plan where that current access to lot 21, that's 14A, if you look at where that meets Hill Road, that is a 12.98 width access point. The existing access easement for 14, lot 20, if you look at that, that's 12.36. So it's that slight 7-inch difference in the width of the access.
And
That's 7 inches because technically it is a reduction in the width. We need to come and get the variance.
this is considered a new access. This wasn't an existing, I mean, maybe it existed
It's just new for that one.
just
Yeah.
for that lot.
So that access already exists for lot 20, 14 Hill Road.
Okay.
What's going to happen is
It's gonna
lot
do 2 lots.
14A is going to be consolidated into that. And just rather than having 2 driveways, we're only going to have 1.
But if I can just make you notice, Matt, so it looks like the biggest change though is in square footage.
Yes.
Land is to 19 because you're taking that triangle, right, and giving it to 21.
And that's
moving
what's subject to the second variance application that relates to
Correct,
lot.
that's the
19.
Jennifer Bouchard application, right, which is the second application.
The only
Yes.
variance that this property needs, lot 21, 14A Hill Road, is to allow the reduction of the access from 12.98 to 12.36 feet.
And do you own the lot that you're making smaller?
Correct.
Okay, so you're taking land away from yourself.
Yes. I'm taking lake access away.
But you also own 21.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so the lots that are involved, all of the lots involved in this boundary line agreement are affiliated and by nature of the law have to consent to the boundary line agreement. So everybody involved in this is on board and has consented and approves of this boundary line adjustment. From the point of view of anybody not part of the boundary line adjustment, there really won't be a difference. None of the actual physical changes to the land, there's not going to be any physical changes to the land other than, as we said, removing the access road that currently goes to the condos parking lot, which is a benefit to them. Everybody else, if you look out your window, there will be no change to the property. It's just a changing of the boundary lines and who owns which piece of grass.
Right. So of the 4 lots that are mentioned on this lot line adjustment, lot 20 is not owned by the Bouchards.
Correct. We previously owned it and we sold it to these, the family here.
Okay.
And they're obviously gaining, so they're happy.
You guys-
So, okay, so they're a lot.
These here for you as well.
It's actually, I was very confused and this makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And here are the 4 properties, if that helps by looking at them. This is the this is.
Yeah, it's the condo that's
Right.
losing the access and gaining the parking.
Right,
basically.
and there's, this is the 14A JCB's property where he's rebuilding this.
Yeah.
And then Mr., what's his last name? Garside, can I say that right? There are actually 2 buildings, that's one that has the 2 homes on it. And that's 20, that's the only one that the Bouchards don't own. And this is 19, which is the one that's gonna be very small, just to kind of get a visual of.
I don't have any more questions at the moment. That map was super helpful.
Yeah, no, that was a good question. To clarify visually,
What's happening?
Yeah.
What's going on? Do you have any more questions? No?
All set.
Any public input? Yep.
You have the microphones. Yes.
Yeah, you just have to identify who you are.
Yes.
Getting there.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, for the record, my name is John Gallus. I'm the president of the Water's Edge Homeowners Association, representing the 15 property owners at 16 Hill Road here in Tilton. We are the abutters to Mr. Bouchard's property. And of course, we are involved in this boundary line adjustment. We, of course, are in favor of the proposed change. The town maps, which I will give you a copy of, currently show the lots as being squared off. So someone in town had a great idea. They did this, many years ago. The adjustment appears to me to be just a housekeeping issue and would bring the new property lines more in the line with what the current town maps show our properties to be. In any case, we of course would support the exchange, and we hope that you will vote for it. It eliminates a dangerous driveway issue going through our parking area and opens up a better driveway and approach to a new property and a taxpayer to the town. And of course, I thank you for your consideration. I'll give you a copy of those tax maps because they've got a great plan. It squares it off nicely, just about.
Does it look a lot like this?
Same thing. So someone had a great idea.
Thank you.
And you can take a look at the tax maps, and I'm sure it's been that way for years. So someone had a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
sir. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Can you
You just have to come up and speak. at the mic.
Just so everybody can hear you.
My name's Carol Chaplin. I have property at number 10 Hill, which would be lot 17 and 17A. And I'm just kind of double checking that the line on the opposite side of all these changes, which would be my property, is staying the same as I understand it to be now and on my original deed.
So her property is above
Is
here.
above 19.
Yeah.
It's above 19.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
Is it up here?
Yeah,
So-
17.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's lot 17 and 17A, which is just like an extension of the yard.
Based on what I see on the map here, and you can probably clarify, Leanne, if I'm incorrect, I don't see any changes to your lot line. So it's continuing across. The only change would be that this back, I guess, eastern corner of your yard would have a different owner now. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Yes.
So if you come, it might make sense if you come up here, ma'am, and look at this map.
I mean, there's been several over the years.
So right now, this is all one property right here,
Yeah,
and they're talking about splitting this little chunk off and moving it to this property.
because that's Hill
And here
Road.
you are, here's your two lots separating, here you are. You're 18.
17.
Yeah,
17.
I'm.
Yeah, well, no, but
I'm
I'm
in
saying
here.
underneath.
I'm in this pork chop size.
Right.
Then,
So this is your lot line right along here,
yeah,
and yours isn't gonna, it's just gonna change the owner of this 20-something foot, not even this 12-foot piece of property line.
yeah, there's a plain like yard strip because there's a deep embankment at one point, and I'm not even sure if that's exactly on the lot line. You know, it's a good, I don't know,
I couldn't hear.
10 feet deep on that embankment that goes down.
The driveway, the old driveway?
Not mine, but literally between the house in front
Yes.
and the house behind. So I'm not even sure that that's a line there. It's, you know, some of it's on one property and it's too straight to follow this line. But
So these lines aren't moving at all, they're just changing ownership here for you. So right now, one person owns this kind of trapezoid shape here,
yeah,
and they're proposing turning this into one piece of property here,
yeah.
and then this into one
And
piece of
then-
property.
Oh, so who does that end up with?
This ends up at lot 20, so it ends up on this house here. This is the one that I believe is under construction. So it'll end up like this is one piece of property.
No, I get the picture. It's just a very odd one.
Yeah.
It is a weird mess here. So right now, it sounds like this lot owns this strip here.
Well, that's the old, right in here is also the old access to the lake for this house.
Correct, and she is moving, she's giving this piece of property that this one owns to this piece of property to square up the property lines and not have all of these like kind of
Disjointed.
disjointed chunks of property lines. Remove this road through their parking lot and move it into this one driveway.
Okay, that's easier to see.
Yeah.
This piece of, this helped me a lot. When I was looking at this at home, I was like, what is happening here?
No,
Wait a minute, that's yours, that's mine.
Oh, nope.
No, no.
Mine, oh,
Yours is
mine's
still over
back
there.
All right, thank you.
Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Well, I'm on the other side of the fence, so to speak, so I just wanted some clarification,
Okay.
you know,
Yeah, that's what this is
Right.
for,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely.
thank you.
Have you gotten the clarification you need?
Yep, for this matter.
Yeah.
And now that, now that they have the boundary, they'll have an actual surveyed boundaries, which I don't know if they had before. These should be clear boundary markers now that this is a legal survey.
You mean the misguided, non-legal markings are gonna go away?
Yeah, I don't know about any illegal markings.
Oh, there's a few up there.
I would imagine this would clarify that.
Yeah, this should clarify this.
I'm in the process of getting one. But no, I mean, when they sold Shady Grove, they had some people come in and clear the land, but they didn't really identify the, the state right of way at all.
Sounds like some of that'll get sorted out in this, I would imagine.
Shady Grove's a totally separate condo association on the other side.
Oh.
I just have to talk to the mic when they're talking because.
It's a whole nother thing,
Okay.
But I'm just saying that, because that runs all the way down, or is supposed to run all the way down to the lake.
Okay, but it doesn't pertain to this case specifically.
As long as you don't talk about the back line, that's not getting adjusted
Mm-mm.
at the moment, so.
No.
No, I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have, Janice just brought to my attention one question. She did add up the total acreage on existing and the total acreage on proposal, says they don't have. Is the existing? I didn't add. Oh, did you add even? That's twice.
I did, like 4 times.
That's what it is. So just the question is the difference of 390 square feet. I don't know if that's a.
Maybe we're
Right. Might want to just check that while you're.
Between the 4 lots, is that what you're talking about?
Right, she just added the four existing and the 4 proposed, and those difference of 390 square feet. So,
Oh. Okay.
it's so tiny,
So
right?
it is pretty tiny.
Yeah.
If you add up both of those columns, the
Okay.
proposed is 390 square feet greater than the existing.
Okay.
Does it matter? Do we, does it matter, Frank?
I don't know. Is there an issue with the lot not being too small?
Well, so that is one of
That was
these,
the second.
that is the second half of this. This lot is going to be even smaller than what's
Right.
allotted for.
So if it's another 390 smaller, whatever, you just make sure that we have the numbers right.
Mm.
So it,
Or, exactly. Right. It looks like, yeah,
we'll give
but
them
land
that.
doesn't grow, so it's either.
Yeah, well, yeah, but is it small?
Oh, so are you basically saying is it 7,600 and change or whatever the other half of that is 8,200 and change? I guess we'll find out here shortly.
So first to see.
I can read them to you, Jen, if that helps, and I can see
No,
them.
I think they have it. Just over here was small, but it's bigger on the print. Give them a call.
Can we continue with the
You can
public?
continue,
input
they
while
can
they're-
read their, they still have to do their application, right? The steps.
Yes.
While they're checking.
My name is Tommy Garside. My brother Wally and my sister Cheryl, we're owners of lots 20 and 18. And we are in favor of the changes as they are. We have no issue with them at all.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I was still back. I never checked it.
Any other public comment? None, and we're not doing online anymore, correct?
I can hear that.
So it sounds like we're just waiting to find out about that.
We can have, the attorney if he wants to read his application.
Oh, I thought he was doing math.
I think Jennifer's calling the survey.
Hello again.
Hello. So we're having going, just so for clarification, we're having going through the other chunk of the lot line adjustments. He's not going through the case for the,
He's gonna do JCB.
Yeah.
So this still relates to JCB. I just wanted to clarify a couple of the issues.
okay,
First, in connection with 10 Hill Road, lot 17 and 17A, none of the boundaries for that property are going to be changed. We couldn't change them without the owner's consent. So that property will remain entirely unchanged. It does appear that there is a mathematical error or a clerical error, or at least an inconsistency between the proposed and existing total square footage. Not sure. We're trying to find out what the source of that is. That may be the easement, it may not be. Ultimately, it's immaterial to this application. The boundary line adjustment would have to be separately approved. This variance is only for the change in the width of the access road, which whether or not the boundary, the square footage of the lots involved is 14,000 or 14,400 or whatever the number is, doesn't change the width of the access road. So that number is going to be the same one way or the other. That's what is before the board right now. We'll try to get that information for you just to put your mind at ease, but ultimately that would be the issue for the approval of the final boundary line adjustment, not what's before the board today.
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess this is where I was confused. We are only hearing the lot,
Right now.
the access road, right?
Right.
Yes.
7 inches.
Yeah, so-
Application 2117.
Yeah, we do have a separate application before the board that relates to 12 Hill Road, because they're two separate properties with two separate technically ownerships. That'll have to be addressed separately, and I'll be back before you in a couple minutes.
So basically, all this talking we
It has to
did
be the right price.
Yes,
Was
was-
the whole plan.
was the whole plan. It doesn't have anything to do with.
So we're just doing. the
Just
road
this
right now.
access road, right?
Right.
Just 7 inches difference.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, well, before you go down, we just have to go through the actual application, those 5 criteria. The
Variance criteria.
Oh, do you
The
want me
variance
to read them
criteria.
aloud?
Yeah, you have to read them into the record there.
Okay. It's becoming more and more common, I'm finding.
What, reading them into the record?
The literal interpretation, yes. Okay.
So I think you just start with the questions.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. Do you need the background repeated or?
No, you would just go to the granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest.
Sure. So this variance will not be contrary to the public interest. The variance is contrary to the public interest when it unduly and in a marked degree conflicts with the ordinance such that it violates the ordinance's basic zoning objectives. And that's based on the Supreme Court case of Malik and Glenn. There are 2 methods for determining whether a variance would violate an ordinance's basic zoning objectives. 1, whether the granting the variance would alter the essential character of the neighborhood, or 2, whether granting the variance would threaten the public health, safety, or welfare. Variances here would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. As noted above, the building and improvements on the property will remain unchanged. The only change to the property is relocating the access to Hill Road, resulting in an insignificant reduction of the width of that access. The lot line adjustment would not intrinsically result in any change to the area that would alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Similarly, there is no reason to suspect that the variance or the lot line adjustment would threaten the public health, safety, or welfare. Instead, the lot line adjustment will, if anything, improve the health, safety, and welfare by consolidating the access to the property with that for lot U120. Therefore, the proposal supports the public interest and is not contrary to it. This variance is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. The requirement that the variance not be contrary to the public interest is related to the requirement that the variance be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. The zoning ordinance sets forth several express purposes, including promoting health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community, lessening congestion on the streets, securing safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, providing adequate light and air, preventing overcrowding of land, avoiding undue concentration of population, and facilitating the adequate provision of transportation, water, sewerage, schools, and other public requirements. It's based on section 1.1 of the ordinance. The lot line adjustment is consistent with these purposes and in fact affirmatively supports several of them. As mentioned above, the lot line adjustment allows for the consolidation of access to the property and lot U120, reducing the number of intersections on Hill Road. This will lessen the congestion of traffic on that roadway and improve the general health and safety. Snow removal will similarly be simplified. Moreover, none of the harms the zoning ordinance seeks to prevent will result from the lot line adjustment. The amount of open space, buffers between buildings, the lack of overcrowding from buildings will remain unchanged from before and after the lot line adjustment. All that changes is the ownership of the existing open space. Lot line adjustment will also benefit the owners of lot U122 by reducing the use of that lot for access to the property. Moreover, the owners of the abutting lots are and legally must be all in agreement for the lot line adjustment to occur. In other words, the only persons who could be harmed by the proposal, i.e. the owner of lot U119, are in agreement that it should occur. Substantial justice will be done. The substantial justice element of a variance is guided by two rules: that any loss to the individual is not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice, and whether the proposed development is consistent with the area's present use. The harm to the applicant of strict enforcement of the ordinance will far outweigh any benefit to the public in this case. There would be no benefit to the public by preventing the lot line adjustment. If anything, there would be a detriment to the public by preventing the consolidation of the access to Hill Road. At the same time, denying the application would harm the applicant and its neighbors by preventing them from adjusting the boundaries of the three lots as they desire. Balancing this loss against the little to no public benefit from strict enforcement of the zoning ordinance in this case clearly shows that granting this application will result in substantial justice. The value of the surrounding properties will not be diminished. Proposed lot line adjustment will only benefit the surrounding properties. The owners of the abutting lots desire the lot line adjustment, and it will reduce the burden on lot U122. From the perspective of other nearby lots, there will be little, if any, substantive change. There is no reason to suspect that the value of any surrounding property will be diminished. Owing to the special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship. Because one, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. As set forth above, the proposed lot line adjustment is consistent with, and in many cases supportive of, the express general purposes of the zoning ordinance and the specific purposes of setback requirements. Frontage requirements are generally intended to prevent overcrowding of land. As discussed above, there will be no material change in the overcrowding of the land as a result of the lot line adjustment. The same open space will exist with simply a change in ownership. Similarly, there will be no detriment to emergency access or response. If anything, the consolidation and simplification of the access to Hill Road will improve emergency access, as there will be no confusion over which driveway is the appropriate driveway for the specific property. Given the landlocked status of the property and the insignificant difference between the current access and the proposed access, there's no fair and substantial relationship between the purposes of the zoning ordinance or the area requirements and the specific application to the property. Finally, the proposed use is a reasonable one. The proposed lot line adjustment is reasonable. The applicant and the owners of the abutting lots are in agreement that the lot line adjustment benefits all involved. The lot line adjustment will benefit the owners of lot U122. There will be no material detriment to any other third-party neighbor who would likely not even notice the difference. Adjusting the ownership of unused land and simplifying the configuration of the boundary lines in the area is a reasonable goal. Moreover, the property is already lawfully non-conforming lot due to the prior variance. The extent to which the property will become more non-conforming is negligible and will have no material impact on any neighbor or the public at large. The applicant reserves the right to amend this application as necessary.
Just for my own clarification, granting this variance doesn't remove the right-of-way through 22. Doesn't actually, I guess, doesn't do some of the things that the overall plan does. The specific variance is only to allow a smaller on that.
The variance itself will not remove the easement. The variance is necessary to enable boundary line adjustment, which will remove that easement.
For sure. Just
So it's a two-step process.
for sure. Just this specific one doesn't do the lot line stuff. Cool. Just we're on the same page. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other questions? All right, we'll close public comment and discuss. This one's, yeah, this is pretty straightforward.
So straightforward. I just can't read it.
What's that? I don't know, we feel the need to go through all 5 amongst ourselves.
No, I think we
We've
did.
talked about it.
In my motion, right? And
I think that should
say
be
no, you don't really. I don't think there's an issue. We're fine.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Looks like 485, so I think they had a.
She had a question, but I don't know, because we technically closed public comment.
Yeah. Looking like one, they're all rounded, I think. So it's all-
Yeah, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
We found the correction, it's an inversion of when they put the numbers over here in the right column. From
It's like
here,
dyslexia.
they just switched 2 of them. So it's now correct.
2 questions for
We
you.
found all the.
Do the 4 of us need to go back through those 5 items on our own again?
No, you can address each one. You can go through and say that, you should go through and say that you
Are in favor or not?
are in favor or not.
Even though
Or
we're gonna
necessarily
vote
by
on it?
vote, or by consensus that everyone agrees that it meets or doesn't meet.
And then we close public comment, but this, Gia over there has a question. Are we allowed to hear that now that we've closed public comment?
That's your choice as the chair. If you want to open
Okay,
back up,
for
you can. If not,
We'll reopen public comment.
Well, looking at
you have to
this,
come over here.
Yeah, you do have to come speak in the microphone, man.
Oh, sorry.
I guess I'm not sure whether I have the right to ask this question or whether I'll actually get an answer, because it might not be open for discussion. And I apologize, I'm not trying to ruffle, anybody. I'm just curious why, if lot 21 already has existing waterfront, why you're reassigning that right of way from a house that doesn't have any immediate access.
I can answer that question. Because when we sold the property, we told them that there'll be nobody going down in their property and it's their private property. And since we own the other house, we can do that. We just keep that as a rental. That way they can maintain their own privacy and they don't have people cutting through the yards.
Yeah, that's always an issue up there.
Yep. And we're hoping that that resolves that issue.
Yeah. I mean, it has no effect on my property anyways, but I'm just,
It's a fair question.
Okay. Satisfied?
I guess.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go through these so we can, yeah, we'll reclose the public comment. And then you want us to go through all 5 again?
I mean, you should,
Okay.
they have to meet all 5 criteria, so you can do it any way you want, but, it's easier. It's clear for the, if it went back to court. that
Yeah,
you
sounds
went
good.
through each one.
All right, number 1, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. I don't see any public issue with making a
I agree.
7-inch shorter access road.
Yeah.
If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed.
I agree.
This is a insignificant change. Granting the variance would do substantial justice. I'm in agreement.
Agree.
If the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding property would not be diminished.
Agree.
Agreement. Unnecessary hardship, owing to a special condition of the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship. Because 1, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance and the specific application of that provision to the property. Happy with the description?
Yes, I agree.
Agree.
Awesome. All right. Any motions? Oh, and the price, I apologize, and the proposed use is a reasonable one. So now we can do a motion.
I motion that we approve case ZB 21-17 as written and submitted.
Motion's been made. Any seconds?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? None? Those in favor?
Aye.
And those opposed or none? 21-17 passes. All right, and now to 21-18.
Now, I know you all know, but just for the record, my name is Jeffrey Christensen. In this case, I'm representing Jennifer Bouchard, who owns the property in question here at 12 Hill Road, lot U119. This one is owned by Ms. Bouchard in her individual capacity, and Ms. Bouchard is with me today. So again, this is the other part of the variances that are necessary to address the lot line adjustment. This is relates to lot 12 Hill Road, lot 19. This is the oddly shaped lot that wraps around all the other lots in the area and is going to be essentially giving land to the neighboring lots. Again, this doesn't involve any change to the buildings. It doesn't involve any change to the physical characteristics of the land. All of that is going to remain the same. However, because the size and shape of lot 19, 12 Hill Road, is going to be changing, it does require some variances. The first is for the lot size of lot 19. Now, section 2.2.3 of the zoning ordinance requires a minimum lot size of 1 acre. This lot is a pre-existing lot that's essentially grandfathered. It already has less than 1 acre. The lot is, I believe, 14,875 square feet. This proposal reduces that to just under 8,000 square feet. Most of that reduction, however, comes from transferring land that is not useful, not really buildable, the land that wraps around lot 14 and 14A in that oddly shaped wedge that's behind the building. So essentially, there'll be little to no practical effect on the buildable, useful land of this lot. It's taking land that it can't use and really giving it to the lots that can use it. Separately, the easterly setback of lot 19 is going to be impacted by this boundary line adjustment, not because there's going to be any change in physical characteristics, but because the boundary line itself is going to be moving. Section 2.2.1 of the zoning ordinance requires a 20-foot setback between the boundary and any structure. The new lot line adjustment will be within 10 feet of the existing building, so a variance will be required. This comes because that empty chunk, that sort of trapezoidal wedge-shaped land that is currently to the east of lot 19 is being transferred. That empty space, however, is still going to be there. That means that at the same time, the only property that theoretically has any negative impact because of this setback encroachment is the property that is going to be benefiting from the transfer of land. Instead of the open space being owned by the neighbor, the open space will be owned by that lot itself. So ultimately, it's a net benefit to that lot with no impact on anybody else. Overall, there's no adverse impacts from this variance. There's no changes to the character of the neighborhood, no changes to the buildings or layouts other than the configuration of the access roads as we discussed before and has already been approved. The only change here is cleaning up the lot lines, simplifying the ownership of this empty space. The only lots that are impacted are the lots that are participating in the boundary line adjustment. And overall, it's just simply a net benefit to everybody with no adverse impacts on anybody. I'm going to assume that you would like me to read the application, the written application aloud. I'm happy to do that now, if that would be convenient for the board, but if you have any questions, I don't want to cut you off.
I do have a question.
I have a couple questions, but I don't care if it's before or after he reads the.
Here's my thought, that you're asking for that lot adjustment on lot 19.
Mm-hmm.
Why does that even need to happen?
That almost gets to be a philosophical question of why does anything need to happen? It's not
Well,
required.
if it didn't get moved, they wouldn't even need this variance.
The variance would still be necessary because the overall property is changing. That elbow that wraps around the other lots is changing. That reduces the overall square footage of 12 Hill Road, and therefore a variance would still be necessary. So it wouldn't change whether or not we would be here today.
So 12 Hill Road, just so you know, lot 19 actually owns that driveway that goes in through, even though they have their own driveway, that is their land. So we're looking to remove that and put it with lot 21, who needs the access, as we discussed in the last, and then remove that L shape around and give it to these people so they don't have people going through their yard.
So I think that this is helping me a little bit. So this is the new driveway here. And this is the piece of property I think we're talking about, like this strip of land that comes between these houses and then down the backside of this house.
Right, so my whole thought was,
Okay, all right, thank you.
So I think
if this line was to stay original and just stay there,
and then
then the setback, and I'm thinking setback. So you wouldn't be 10 feet from the line, wouldn't be needed.
So that 10-foot mark on the map is to an open patio, it's just pavers. Just so you know, it's not to a structure, it's just to a patio, like pavers.
oh, thank you. So like this, that fence and some pavers, like you're basically making the fence the property line.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're saying like instead of giving this wedge, doing this piece of it, do everything else, but if they didn't do this piece of it,
Then you wouldn't be
then
looking at
the setback wouldn't
setback.
need to be a thing. Does this,
And it would have more square footage.
the lot would
Yeah.
not change as much? Does that, you guys get what he's saying? But he's saying that if they do everything they're talking about, except this corner of it,
Right.
then they
Trapezoid.
wouldn't have to ask, they wouldn't need the variance from the lot setback. Right, so he's saying do all this, but not changing this triangle, then this variance wouldn't be in existence, wouldn't be a thing.
And the lot size would be bigger.
Is lot 22 affected with the condos now or no?
That's a great question because I don't know about this little triangle piece of it. I don't know where that comes from.
Do you have a question?
That triangle that you're pointing to, that comes from the condominium lot right now.
So 2021, or this little mini triangle is owned by
Lot 22?
2022.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's going to be transferred to lot 20.
And they're not here, are they?
Yeah.
Oh, they are, okay.
No, the trapezoidal piece that's gonna be transferred to lot 21.
Mhm.
What is that size?
4,630 square. So that's the total width of the driveway.
Right. This lot,
Correct, yeah.
yeah, she owns it.
She
Yeah,
owns
yeah.
it, yeah.
But it's part of this lot. Yep. So I think that this lot is all the way down to this driveway, comes down here,
Yep.
comes all through this,
Mhm.
and then back up, and that's lot 19.
So one of,
Six.
so part of the reason for that wedge is because that easement goes across partially that wedge. So consolidating that easement for lots 21 and 20 means that you only need to have 2 units involved in the easement instead of 3. Because then lot 19 no longer needs to be involved in that easement.
Oh, right, because this easement comes all the way over to this L
Mhm.
shape.
Yep.
Is this where it is now?
This is where it is now.
Yeah.
It looks,
Mhm.
this helped me a little bit. So this is the current easement
Mhm.
through this parking lot.
And where it's gonna go?
This is the new easement.
Okay.
Then this is lot 19 here.
Uh-huh.
And then, so they're talking about taking this into one lot. And then this into one lot. And then this is a little grass strip that goes back around.
So they're gonna get extra land over there, right?
So they're gonna
Yeah.
own they're gonna give that up and then get that.
Next time.
I don't know if you got any questions.
Yeah.
Hopefully there
Well,
won't be a next
no,
time.
not really, but my thought was, and I know he's saying that it would only be between like 2 properties versus 3, but that's just paperwork. That's not a big deal at all. The necessity of removing, we're adding this. Now we're talking, setback. Then this lot would be of significant size larger,
Right.
and so, I don't know. And the necessity of it doesn't.
What is this lot size?
Like, what does this lot gain from this? And now this is a very small lot. You always think in the future. And,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair question to ask. So his question was, what does lot 21 gain from? It might make more sense if we come here.
From this triangle right here,
Yes.
trailer parking, or there's a game shed there for like outdoor games for kids, grass, because a lot of this house is driveway and it's very small, like grassy area. So right now we just play cornhole back there, things like that.
Basically creates recreational space for the
Where
benefit of
lot 19 has a large fenced in yard. So they've actually never used that green space because it's fenced in.
We rent it out for affordable housing now.
That lot is, the section that's being transferred is beyond the fence.
Right. The fence is the new property line.
Yes. So there is an existing fence. That lot is beyond it. It's not that beneficial to lot 19. It's more beneficial to lot 21. This is part of an overall boundary line adjustment between all of these lots. Could there be a different boundary line adjustment that exists out there? Sure, there's always alternatives. This is what's before the board now. Necessity is, there's no legal requirement that these 4 property owners agree and create a boundary line adjustment. It's to simplify and benefit all 4 of them by their agreement. Even to the extent of the hardship element, the law applicable to that, the standard as set by the Supreme Court, is not whether the variance is required to enable any reasonable use, not whether it's essentially required, but whether the proposal is reasonable is one of, even if there are many alternative reasonable uses. So ultimately, this is the boundary line adjustment that these 4 owners have settled upon and find to be beneficial to themselves. There's no negative impact to anybody else. Any theoretical future owner of any one of these lots in the future would be purchasing a lot with full knowledge of this adjustment. This would be recorded, become part of the public record. They'd know what they're getting into. So there's no downside to anybody, and everybody who is impacted one way or the other is in agreement and is consenting to this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the way I look at it is any changes of value per se are to herself.
Oh, I understand. They're asking for 2 variances that one wouldn't even be needed, and the second, adding 4 to it would also really not be needed, other than the small. I don't know. These are just my thoughts.
No,
I saw that.
that's what we're supposed to do is have these thoughts. Any questions so far? Any other questions, Brian? No? We move through, going through the 5, if you'd read them into the record there.
Sure, I'm happy to do so.
Yeah.
I'm going to apologize in advance for a lot of the redundancy because this all relates to the same boundary line adjustment. You will have heard much of this before. But the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. Variance is contrary to the public interest when unduly and in a marked degree conflicts with the ordinance such that it violates the ordinance's basic zoning objectives. There are two methods for determining whether a variance would violate an ordinance's basic zoning objectives. One, whether granting the variance would alter the essential character of the neighborhood. And two, whether granting the variance would threaten the public health, safety, or welfare. Variances here would not alter the essential character. As noted above, the building and improvements on the property will remain unchanged. The only change proposed is to transfer certain unused portions of the property to the abutting lots, benefiting the abutting lots and making the property more regularly shaped. The lot line adjustment would not intrinsically result in any change to the area that would alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Similarly, there is no reason to suspect that these variances or the lot line adjustment would threaten the public health, safety, or welfare. Instead, the lot line adjustment will, if anything, improve the public health, safety, and welfare by consolidating the access for the abutting lots. Therefore, the proposal supports the public interest and is not contrary to it. The variance is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. The requirement that the variance not be contrary to the public interest is related to the requirement that the variance be consistent with the spirit of the ordinance. The zoning ordinance set forth several express purposes, including promoting health, safety, and morals, and general welfare of the community, lessening congestion in the streets, securing safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, providing adequate light and air, preventing overcrowding of land, avoiding undue concentration of population, and facilitating the adequate provision of transportation, water, sewerage, schools, and other public requirements. Additionally, setbacks are specifically intended to prevent encroachments over property lines, safety from possible traffic accidents, snow removal, buffer other land uses such as commercial to residential, and to provide open space around structures and lots. This is based on Ordinance Section 4.3. Lot line adjustment is consistent with these purposes and in fact affirmatively supports several of them. As mentioned above, the lot line adjustment allows for the consolidation of access to the abutting lots, reducing the number of intersections on Hill Road. This will lessen the congestion of traffic on that roadway and improve the general health and safety. Snow removal will similarly be simplified. Moreover, none of the harms the zoning ordinance seeks to prevent will result from the lot line adjustment. The amount of open space, buffers between the buildings, the lack of overcrowding from buildings will be unchanged before and after the lot line adjustment. All that changes is the ownership of the existing open space areas. The lot line adjustment will result in the building on the property being closer to its easterly boundary than before because the easterly boundary moves. This will not, however, negatively impact the abutter to the east because the abutter to the east is receiving that open space. The end result will be a benefit to the abutter, not a detriment. Moreover, the owners of the abutting lots are and legally must be all in agreement for the lot line adjustment to occur. In other words, the only persons that could be harmed by the proposal, in other words, the owner of lot 121, are in agreement that it should occur. Substantial justice will be done. The substantial justice element of a variance is guided by two rules. That any loss to the individual is not outweighed by a gain to the general public is an injustice, and whether the proposed development is consistent with the area's present use. The harm to the applicant, strict enforcement of the zoning ordinance, will far outweigh any benefit to the public in this case. There'd be no benefit to the public by preventing the lot line adjustment. If anything, there would be a detriment to the public by preventing the consolidation of the access to the abutting lots. At the same time, denying this application would harm the applicant and her neighbors by preventing them from adjusting the boundaries of the three lots as they desire. Balancing this loss against the little to no public benefit and strict enforcement of the zoning ordinance in this case clearly shows that granting this application will result in substantial justice. The value of surrounding properties will not be diminished. The proposed lot line adjustment will only benefit the surrounding properties. The abutting lots will both benefit from the addition of land. From the perspective of the other nearby lots, there will be little, if any, substantive change. There's no reason to suspect that the value of any surrounding properties will be diminished. Owing to a special condition of the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship because no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. As set forth above, the proposed lot line adjustment is consistent with, and in many cases supportive of, the express general purposes of the zoning ordinance, and the specific purposes of setback requirements. Area requirements in zoning ordinances are generally intended to prevent the overcrowding of land. Setback requirements are also typically enacted to ensure adequate emergency access and response. As discussed above, there will be no material change in the overcrowding of the land as a result of the lot line adjustment. The same open space will exist, with simply a change of ownership. Similarly, there will be no detriment to emergency access or response. If anything, the consolidation and simplification of the access to the abutting lots will improve emergency access, as there will be no confusion over which driveway is the appropriate driveway for any specific property. Given the shape and layout of the property and the abutting lots, particularly the odd shape of the property, there is no fair and substantial relationship between the purposes of the zoning ordinance or the area requirements and the specific application to the property. Finally, the proposed use is a reasonable one. The proposed lot line adjustment is reasonable. The applicant and the owners of the abutting lots are all in agreement. The lot line adjustment benefits all involved. There'll be no material detriment to any third-party neighbor who likely would not even notice the difference, except for the owner of lot U122, who will benefit from relocating the access to lot U121. Adjusting the ownership of unused land and simplifying the configuration of the boundary lines in the area is a reasonable goal. Moreover, the property is already a pre-existing non-conforming lot. The extent to which the property will become more non-conforming is relatively minor and will have no material impact on any neighbor or the public at large. For all of those reasons, the applicant requests that you grant the variance.
Thank you. Any public comment? Any other questions? No? All right. Seeing none, we'll close public comment and go to discussion amongst the board. I was thinking about this as he was talking, but clarify. Tell me if I'm correct here in my thought. The purpose of the zoning is not what I would want for a yard. It's to prevent development and congestion. So we set the lot lines as a town to decide how congested something was going to be.
Right.
And this change doesn't change that. It's not like this change is going to allow another house to go in there.
Right.
This change doesn't even allow another building to get built there outside of variances. And so I guess what I struggle with is like, well, would I want a smaller lot? Well, it doesn't really matter what I want. It's how this meets the intent of the zoning. Am I right with my interpretation there?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not creating another house lot with that triangle. That's what you're.
Yeah, like, this change doesn't make more development can happen in there. And that's really the intent on the lot size, is not whether somebody wants a big yard or not. It's about whether or not how much you can build in an area.
My only thoughts on variances and zoning is there for a reason. The variances are desires and wants, and does the desire and want outweigh what is basically set forth by the town?
Intent by the zoning.
And the people who live here. And so, and it isn't just for now, it's for the future. So it isn't like right now, this is a great idea. Is this what, want going forward?
And how does that match with the zoning?
Right.
Yeah.
So not that I think it's a bad idea. I'm just wondering if.
No, I like when people ask questions, because then we sort it out and end up at a good spot.
Right.
I guess that's like going in the future. I can't see how this change would be like, well, now there's another house getting put in there and it's more densely packed.
Right.
That's kind of I don't know, the way I was looking at it. Ryan's been awfully quiet today. Yeah.
Well, it's all owned by the same person.
Yeah. Right. She is.
So when he sells, it's gonna go, yeah.
You guys comfortable going through the five?
Yeah.
You guys?
Yeah.
All right. Granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Kind of, that's where I was just at, that this doesn't change the intent of what the zoning was for the town. This doesn't allow for more congestion to happen down there.
Agree.
And just remember, Matt, as you go through it, you have two variances, right? You're taking the two together on each criteria, because I think that's how
It's kind of how it's
Presented.
proposed, so that's what I was,
Okay.
do you want us to hear them individually, or do you want us to just do them all together?
It's one proposal.
If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Again, I'm kind of in the same spot there.
Yeah.
Granted, variance would do substantial justice. Again, I don't see any impact of the justice of the public in this change, and the justice to the property owners. It's her property. She's doing what she wants with her property.
Agree.
If the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished.
Agree.
Unnecessary hardship, owing to a special condition of the property that distinguishes it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessary hardship. I think so. I think that this is a messy tangle of properties, and I mean, if nothing else, this is a hardship on 22.
That's nonsense.
Yeah, how it's cut up.
Yeah.
Right.
Good, Brian.
Yep.
Agree.
Yep.
No unfair and substantial justice. Substantial relationship exists between the general public purpose of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision of the property. We just talked about that. And the proposed use is a reasonable one. I think that is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Once you see it all nice and highlighted.
It works.
Agree.
Yeah, agree.
Any questions?
I'm making a motion to approve case number 21-18.
I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
So it's to approve both, just for clarification.
Yeah.
2 variances, one for setback and the other for
Property line.
lot size.
Yes.
Did we figure out in the math that they did whether these numbers
Yeah,
are
which is
right?
an inversion when they transposed to the chart style from the actual.
Okay, so the motion we're moving on is correct, the 797.47, 79.
14,875, right, it was 14,875 and will be.
7,947.
The math is right in the chart.
Okay. No other discussion on the motion? All right, move to a vote. Those in favor of the motion? Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. It is approved. Thank you for all of your time. We have to approve our minutes.
Oh, yeah. My thoughts are, you know, that's a lot. It's not necessary. That's not over here. Now, does it make sense? Yeah, and it's good, and it's always gonna be fine, but it's definitely specific.
I love you bring up this question there. Love it.
And it's like, I was a tax.
We got to do our minutes, Brian.
Yeah. A good explanation. He's a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, and he's gonna sell it.
Yeah.
That's his job. He's a salesman at that point. And he can throw a bunch of numbers around and say, hey, by the court law, this is, you know, and you're like, no, as a tax, we can always say, that isn't needed, we're not granted. Everything else is great. But the yellow line stays intact for future.
We know these lines.
Because all, you know, this is my theory. What's gonna happen is now that he's got this nice property in storage, he's gonna sell this lot to consolidate. And so he got what's best for maybe. You know, and so I'm like, you know.
And then it's something you can do. Same token, this is now more valuable. So is that better for the town?
Yeah, no, but he's like, all of this is better because, no, this is the only thing I didn't like.
Yeah.
Everything else made 100% sense. This was just a want and desire, not to clean up anything or make anything better. The lot was better when it was like this.
And that, this triangle here could have gone to 21.
What's that?
This look,
Oh, yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And then
We gotta finish our.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
You remember when we'll see it,
You
we'll
know, it's on
start
task.
with that, and then that's fine.
But that's what I'm saying.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from July 20th, 2021?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July
2020.
twentieth, 2021.
Party actually owns.
Second,
I'll second that.
it's been seconded.
Yeah.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The minutes are approved. And would love to have a motion to adjourn the meeting. I can make it? I
Yeah,
thought I
yeah.
wasn't allowed to make those.
Yeah, you are.
You set up the rules, you're the chair.
Oh, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second it.
It's been seconded.
Brian.
Brian did. Those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
There it is. Yeah.